Prophecy foretells the establishment of a world government and a world religion in the end time. It's Satan's master plan. We will discuss the ongoing fulfillment of these prophecies on today's edition of End of the Age. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dave Robbins with Endtime Ministries. Thank you for joining me on this edition of End of the Age. Now, I'll be covering some things on the radio today that happened over the last 70 years. You were never taught this in high school. It was on purpose. It was by grand design. It was an agenda that was being pushed by globalists and a mastermind, Satan himself, but they didn't want you to know about it. So, you went through high school, you went through college, you never learned about these things. What am I talking about? Satan's end-time kingdom, the prophesied world government. So let's get off deep into this today. Let's talk about the prophecy first, and then we'll get off into some things that you probably have never heard about, unless you've really studied these things. I'm going to go through a history lesson today, and you might be shocked at some of the things that have happened here in America that you've never heard about before. So, 650 years before John wrote the book of Revelation, the prophet Daniel was given a vision of 4 beasts. And these beasts represented kingdoms or nations that would exist at the time of the second coming of Jesus Christ. These 4 beasts, described in Daniel 7, verses 4 through 7, and the modern nations they symbolize are, number 1, a lion with eagle's wings, which was Great Britain and the United States, a bear, which is Russia, a 4-headed leopard, Germany, and a 10-horned beast, which would symbolize the reborn Holy Roman Empire or the current European Union. Now, in the book of Revelation, John uses these same symbols, this is Revelation 13, uses these same symbols of nations to describe the end-time world government. In John's account, the 4 separate nations in Daniel 7 federalize into one large global governing body. And the interpretation of it would go something like this. Now, this would be Revelation 13, 1 and 2. John said, I stood upon the sand of the sea, and having saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns, which would symbolize the European Union, were 10 crowns. Upon his heads were the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. It had the body of the leopard, that'd be Germany. His feet were as the feet of a bear, Russia. Mouth as the mouth of a lion, Great Britain. And the dragon, Satan, Revelation 12:9 tells us that, and Revelation chapter 20. Satan gave him his seat, power, and great authority. Satan is the mastermind behind the world government in the earth today. It's his effort to establish a physical kingdom throughout the end time. Now, this is a 2,000-year-old prophecy, everybody, of a world government that will be established just prior to the second coming of Jesus Christ. Guess what? It's already being established as we speak. Now, you know that we've talked about this many times, that we will have to resist the Antichrist and this world government throughout the end time. Especially the nations that the Bible prophesies will not come under the reign of the Antichrist. Israel, the country of Jordan, and the United States. We'll have to resist. And we're resisting now. That's one of the reasons that they hate Donald Trump so much, is because he's pulling us out of this world governing body. Satan hates Donald Trump, and the globalist, these people that are trying to establish this world government, They can't stand Donald Trump because he's a threat to that. And I'll get into that here in a minute. And so let's talk about efforts to establish a world government. Now, we talk about globalists all the time, but I'm going to get off into some things that you probably never heard of. Again, unless you study this all the time. We'll talk about democracy without borders. What is that? Well, let's get into it here for just a moment. The global elites. You guys, many of you know this because you've heard us before on the radio many times, but global elites have been for decades working to create a world government. And the goal is a global governing system so all-inclusive and minutely detailed that it will control all aspects of every person's life. I mean, consider the social credit system that's being set up in China. They want to control everything. Well, these global elites want a global governing system that will do the same thing. Actually, much worse once the Antichrist comes on the scene. It's going to control all aspects of every person's life. And the intention is to eventually regulate all individual production, consumption patterns, with the ultimate objective of thought manipulation, resulting in absolute obedience and allegiance. And the outcome of these efforts is the formation of international institutions specifically designed to govern the world. We'll talk about some of those institutions and one of the drivers behind them for over the last 70 years. It's something you may not have heard before. Maybe you have. We'll talk about it when we come back from the break.
About our trip, it was a wonderful experience. We totally enjoyed the time spent with other believers, worshiping, experiencing the places where Christ walked. One of our favorites was being on Mount Moriah, where the Holy of Holies are, the Dome of the Spirit. And the teachings that Brother Baxter did was so enlightening. It was so much to take in. It will take us another month or two to really grasp the full extent of the knowledge we received on this trip. Our tour guide in Israel was fantastic. He was very knowledgeable. I think God chose him just for us. Thanks, Jana. Our lives will never be the same. We will try to do this tour again. Mike and Julie L., Cayman Islands.
Join us May 1st through May 16th, 2020, for a trip to the wonderful land of Israel and the Holy Roman Empire reborn.
We've seen Bible prophecy fulfilled like never before. From the halls of the United Nations to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, Endtime Ministries continues to reveal the Bible prophecy in the news headlines around the world every day. Whether it's through our broadcast or online at our Jerusalem Prophecy College, your gifts enable us to put vital materials in the hands of those who need it most. Because of you, we continue to replace fear with faith in the hearts of Christians around the world. We will continue to see prophecy come to pass at an even swifter pace. We need your support. Your donation of any amount enables us to continue to broadcast and be a voice in the ever-growing censored media. To become a partner or give a one-time gift, visit endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now. That's 800-363-8463. Go online now. Visit endtime.com.
So these institutions that they've set up to govern the world, they would include many recognizable organizations such as the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, the International Criminal Court, the World Bank, World Health Organization, World Trade Organization, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. That's just a few of them. And you would recognize them. You hear about them in the news every day. What are they for? What are they designed to do? To go in and help a country when they have a tsunami or a hurricane? It's not what it's designed to do, folks. It's designed to govern every person on the planet. That's the goal of those organizations. So, after World War II, the United States led the efforts to create this new world order. And for the last 7+ decades, we've been the one of the principal drivers behind this world governing body. Yes, we had people here in the United States, presidents and the establishment that were devoted to establishing a world governing body. Every administration since the founding of the United Nations, whether Republican or Democrat, fully supported the New World Order. And until recently, we've been the leader of not just the United Nations or NATO, but of all the multilateral institutions designed to govern the world. Yes, the United States of America. There are people here in the United States that absolutely believe in a world governing body. And it's the world government prophesied 2,000 years ago in the book of Revelation. Now, you want to understand what's going on in America today with Donald Trump? Do you want to understand the main battle that Donald Trump is fighting every day? Now, you say, well, it's abortion, it's this, that, and the other. No, hold on a second, listen. Donald Trump is fighting globalism or world government versus nationalism. He's been fighting it since before he was elected. These people realized, hey, this guy's not for globalism. He's a nationalist. We're going to have to fight him. It involves, the fight every day involves open borders or protected borders. It involves the climate propaganda. It involves socialism. It involves world government. People trying to establish a world government advocate every one of these. But Donald Trump is against every one of them. He's tearing the world government system apart at the seams, and they have got to get rid of him. Hence the impeachment. You understand what's going on in America right now. Donald Trump is against the international community and the establishment in the United States to further yield up our sovereignties into this world governing body. That's the main fight with Donald Trump as we speak, December 10th, 2019. They cannot allow him to be reelected. So they've got to get rid of him. I mean, The Economist magazine, the most influential periodical on the planet. I mean, kings and presidents, and these are the kind of people that read The Economist. It's owned partially by the Globalist, the Rothschilds family. They named Trump as the biggest threat to the liberal New World Order. They wrote an article. It stated the rules-based international order that emerged from the wreckage of the Second World War was a huge improvement on any preceding era. And yet the liberal internationalism is now under attack from many sides. Donald Trump's America First doctrine explicitly repudiates it. They see him as a threat against their world government. Again, prophetically speaking, who's behind the efforts to establish a world government? Satan himself. And the article goes on, it says, perhaps the greatest danger at present is the incumbency of an American president who despises international norms, who disparages free trade, who continually flirts with abandoning America's essential role in maintaining the global legal order or the world government that they're trying to establish. So, arguably the most powerful, influential periodical on the planet sees Donald Trump as a threat to this world government that they're trying to establish. Now, I want to talk about something that is been running alongside the United Nations. This entity saw the United Nations as that could be a world government, but as yet wasn't because it didn't have the enforcement methods, the teeth that a true world dictatorial government would have to be able just to dictate things, and people have to line up and yield up their sovereignty and have this true world governing body. So there was an institution that was created to help push a true world governing body. And it was called the World Federalist Institute, the World Federalist Association. So the WFIs, the World Federalist Institutes, their methods are dialogue and research, and it is a program of the World Federalist Association, now known as, because people realized over a period of time that the World Federalist Association, hey, those people are for world government. So guess what they do? Just like with global warming, now it's climate change, and now it's climate catastrophe and climate meltdown. Because people caught on to the propaganda of what's really going on, they just changed their name. So now the World Federalist Association, or the World Federalist Institute, is now known as the Citizens for Global Solutions Education Fund. It's the same thing, they just changed their name. Well, also there is the Democracy Without Borders. And it's another name for the World Federalist Association that was in Switzerland. Well, the Democracy Without Borders, they've been talking lately, and they're saying, hey, the UN at 75 years old, next year in 2020, is the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. And it's time to give citizens a voice. Now remember, what's their goal? Absolutely to create a fully enforceable world law, world government, where you don't have a say. Now they're saying we need to give the citizens a voice, right? That's not what this is all about, everybody. They say in this article that the UN wants a global conversation. Next year, the United Nations will commemorate its 75th anniversary. The General Assembly determined that all the UN's activities in 2020 shall be guided by the theme, the future we want, the United Nations we need, reaffirming our collective commitment to multilateralism. What does that mean? Reaffirming our commitment to world government. And they say that in January, the Secretariat plans to launch, now this is next month, the biggest ever global conversation on the role of global cooperation and to build a global vision of 2045, which would be the centennial, 100-year anniversary of the United Nations. And they said that a global civic participation campaign launched today, which was a couple weeks ago, by a broad alliance of citizens' initiatives, civil society groups, and networks from across the world, jointly coordinated by the Democracy Without Borders, which again was the World Federalist Association of Switzerland. They just changed their name, it is now Democracy Without Borders, Democracy International, and Civicus, the World Alliance for Citizen Participation. It calls on the United Nations and its member states to go a step further. You say, well, a step further, they're already created to be in the United Nations. What's the step further? Because this federalist movement, the World Federalist Association, which again has now changed their name, Citizens for Global Solution, Democracy Without Borders, they believe the United Nations should take the step further to be a true world governing body with a global set of laws that you and I should abide by. Not the Constitution of the United States. Forget the Declaration of Independence. They want a true, enforceable world governing body. And you'll hear Walter Cronkite say that here in a minute. We need a true world, global, enforceable law. So Citizens for Global Solutions, they actually, which is the World Federalist Association here in the United States, they just changed names. They came out with an article, the UN at 75, taking stock. Where are we at right now? They said the UN General Assembly President, Maria Fernanda Espinosa Garces, a former Ecuadorian ambassador to the United Nations, she says the 75th anniversary of the creation of the institution of the United Nations is a time for reflection as well as celebration. In her remarks on April the 8th, she said the anniversary, which is coming up next year again, offers both opportunities and serious challenges. She said the United Nations is more vital than ever in a time of rising nationalism and extremism. What's she talking about? I.e., Donald Trump. The United States, the most powerful nation on the planet, we've been the driver up until 2016, and then Donald Trump started pulling us out. And She goes on to say, we sometimes speak of this moment as a crossroads where things could go either way. But it feels more and more like a tipping point, as though we are on the brink of an irreparable damage to our rules-based international system. That's a synonymous term for world government. They see Donald Trump, every globalist sees Donald Trump as a threat to their world government they're trying to create. There's a million reasons why I'm thankful to live in the United States. This is 1,000,001. Because I don't want to be part of the world government in the end time. Anything that has to do with Satan, I don't want to be a part of it. And the world government, the Bible says, Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 through 3, verses 2, that Satan is the driver, the dragon, give him his seat, power, and great authority. So Espinosa says that we're losing the communications battle. She said the 75th anniversary is a golden opportunity to create a new and convincing narrative about the irreplaceable role of multilateralism and its main home, the United Nations. What is she saying? Hey, the irreplaceable role of our world government we are trying to create. They cannot stand Donald Trump. So, you wonder why they're bringing up all these false charges and fabricating things and all this stuff against Donald Trump, trying to get him impeached? That's why. It's not just this little frivolous stuff with the Ukraine and all that stuff. That's not what this is all about. There's an agenda that's being driven every day that's behind this. I mean, think about it like this. If Donald Trump was on board with world government and playing ball with the European Union and the United Nations and on board with this, they would love him. There would be no impeachment. Because that's why the fact of the matter is there is an agenda behind all of this. Donald Trump is anti-world government, anti-socialism, anti-open borders. He said, hey, I'm a nationalist. It's America first. And hence, impeaching. We got to get him out of here. We can't allow him to go to the polls and take a chance of getting reelected. We've got to get him out of here. And that's why they're working at an unbelievable pace to go ahead and call for the articles of impeachment this morning. And we got to get him out of here because he's not playing ball with this world government that was prophesied 2,000 years ago in the book of Revelation to be established right now. The United States isn't playing ball anymore, and which is actually scriptural. I'm not going to take time to go into that aspect of the prophecy today, but it's very prophetic. The United States is not going to be part of it. They can't stand it. So let's talk about democracy without borders, because here in the United States it's Citizens for Global Solutions, but in Switzerland it's Democracy Without Borders. Same thing, different names. The Swiss World Federalist Association is now the Democracy Without Borders Switzerland. And the Association of World Federalists of Switzerland joined the International Organization of Democracy Without Borders and renamed itself Democracy Without Borders Switzerland. The same thing, just another name. And it was decided at a General Assembly in March of this year and confirmed at an extraordinary meeting in October. And the mission in Democracy Without Borders, it makes it clear that we continue to work for world federalism. What is world federalism? It's world government. These are all synonymous terms. They said our common focus is the promotion of a global democracy through the establishment of a parliamentary assembly at the United Nations. The Association of World Federalists Switzerland, it was founded back in 1960 as the Swiss chapter of the World Federalist Movement. The effort to run alongside the United Nations and to push for world government. That's their goal, is to have a fully enforceable world law and a dictatorship of a world government. Not everything's voted on and no, that's not what they want. A fully enforceable global law. That's the goal here. Now, They've just changed, again, they've just changed their names. I mean, it's this thing that's happening all the time now. Hey, we can't get people to buy into an ice age, so let's sell them on the fear factor of global warming. Can't get them to buy into that anymore because it's easily proven the earth isn't warming, so now we got to go to climate change. Now we got to go to climate meltdown. Now we got this, that, and the other. Just change the name. Well, these people trying to establish this world government, they've changed their names to Democracy Without Borders, Citizens for Global Solutions, etc. And this effort to push the United Nations, remember what they said, one step further into a fully functioning world governing body, that's what these guys are designed to do. They work day and night feverishly to get this world government established. Well, of course, we know the Bible says there's going to be a world government in the end time. And it's happening right before our very eyes, folks. I know when I went through high school and college and things like that, I was never taught about any of this stuff. And so, but now, we're starting with you go back to the World Federalist Association. And if you go to the Citizens for Global, moving on, the Citizens for Global Solutions website. Now, this is very important. This is where I got to slow way down because I want you to see this. If you go to the Citizens for Global Solutions website, you can do this. I just did this yesterday, and I told Doug Norvell, he was sitting across the hall from me, I said, man, you're not going to believe some of the stuff that's in here. Some of the things that Irvin Baxter and I have been talking about for years. All the documentation, I've got documentation for all of it, but these guys are backing up things we've said for years now. And I tell you what, I know I'm coming up to a break. When we get back from the break, I'll get into this global Citizens for Global Solutions website because they've got some things on there you absolutely have to hear. But we're at the culmination of this thing. We're not at the beginning, and we're not going looking for the end time. We're there.
Move Mountains with Irvin Baxter. This book by Irvin's grandson provides 30 days of devotion that will enhance your relationship with God and others. Authentic illustrations from early morning devotions at Endtime will help you find your purpose and eliminate fears. Commit to taking this 30-day journey and experience real life change. Get your book for only $14.99. Call 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com/move.
If ever people needed to hear the unvarnished truth, it is now. There are some subjects that are not politically correct to talk about, but they're urgent. That's why I'm grateful for Endtime magazine. If you're not a subscriber, you're missing information that will impact your life. Endtime has a bi-monthly magazine that explains how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. You can get a 2-year subscription for only $29. You can also get a bulk subscription and pass them out to your church. We have gotten reports that Endtime magazine has caused spiritual awakenings in churches when they see the prophecies being fulfilled right now. You can start your own ministry and leave them in doctor's offices, libraries, laundromats. You never know if you might be responsible for saving someone who is searching for the unvarnished truth. That's what the magazine has done in many lives. Call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and get your subscription today.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archive button.
You know, everybody, since I know this is Satan's effort to establish his kingdom in the earth, this is one of the reasons that of the prophecies, this is one of the one. World government is one of the ones that I like to study and to expose. Because we'll all have to deal with this thing before it's over with. The world government, the world religion, the mark of the beast. These are Satan's efforts to establish his kingdom on the earth. So on a daily basis, I will study something about the formation of this current world government. And again, if you look at, so I'm going to know about entities that have devoted their lives in their careers, everything, to establishing a world governing body. Well, you've got the World Federalist Association, the World Federalist Institute, and then you've got they all changed their names to the Citizens for Global Solutions. You can go to their website right now. And so what I did that yesterday. Now, I've been there before, but I went there yesterday just to see what was really going on with this 75-year anniversary deal with the United Nations and how maybe the Pope tied into it. And I look at all aspects of it, and I get information from all over the place. But on the Global Solutions website, they have a section there devoted to the first 50 years of the World Federalist Association, 1947 to 1997. Now, you understand the United Nations was formed in 1945. And there was a reason that it was a couple years later that the United Federalist Association was established. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of history here to kind of show you what's been going on in America while you were going through just living life. You went through high school, you went through college, you were working a job, you went through life, and you never knew that there were people that were trying to get you involved in a world governing body. And so if you go there, the Citizens for Global Solutions, if you go to their website and look at this 50-year, this history lesson, it states that the United World Federalist Declaration of Purpose, this is what their goal is. They're not really trying to hide it anymore. It's right there on their website. This was adopted November 2nd, 1947. They said, we believe that peace is not merely the absence of war, but the presence of justice, of law, of order, in short, of government, and the institutions of government. The world peace can be created and maintained, here it is, only under a world federal government, universal and strong enough to prevent armed conflict between nations and having direct jurisdiction over the individual in those matters within its authority. Did you hear that? Who's the individual? That's you and that's me. And it goes on to say, therefore, while endorsing the efforts of the United Nations to bring about a world community favorable to peace, we will work to create a world federal government with authority to enact, interpret, and enforce world law adequate to maintain peace. So in other words, it's not, they want a United Nations, they love that, but they say it's just not enforceable enough. It doesn't have the enforcement teeth that we want. So we are going to work as an organization to make that happen. Now, according to the Federalist Association 50th Anniversary Historical Survey, that's what I'm going to be going through. You can look it up for yourself. Go to the Citizens for Global Solutions website, check it out. According to this historical survey, the world movement for world federal government, back in August of 1947, the world movement for world federal government was formally established in Montreux, Switzerland. It's now called the World Federalist Movement. Of course, they've changed their name from that since. The international organization was formed with the goal of bringing together on international level the groups which were working for world federation or a world government. Shortly after the end of war, Tom Geismer, an exile from Nazi Germany and the editor of the New York-based World Government News, along with leaders from the British organization Federal Union, announced plans for holding an international conference of organizations promoting world government. Near the end of the Second World War, Winston Churchill warned, now, and again, I got to tell you before we get off into some of this, these people are involved, I'm talking about high-level people, presidents, congressmen, senators, movie stars, the media, everybody's involved in this. I mean, near the end of the Second World War, Winston Churchill, he warned that unless some effective supranational government can be set up and brought into action, the prospects of peace and human progress are dark and doubtful. So it was the combination of the world-changing events of the mid-20th century with the ideas of federalism that had developed through the centuries that inspired and called world federalists, these people that believe in a world government, into action. It goes on to say the United Nations was founded in 1945, and though they believe it's a valuable instrument to deal with many world problems, the World Federalist Association believe that it is not a true world government yet. It was established to be, but they say that it lacks enforcement power and is financially dependent on its individual member states. They want it to be able to run on its own and to be a true enforcement method in the planet. And from the very beginning, World Federalists recognized that more was needed than what the United Nations could deliver. Yet, I should say. In the years before the immediate and after the formation of the United Nations, several citizen organizations developed that advocated the goal of a world federation or a world government, and each with somewhat different ideas of what was needed and how to achieve it. Back on February 22nd, 1947, 5 Federalist organizations, Americans United for World Government, Massachusetts Committee for World Federation, Student Federalist, the World Citizens of Georgia, and the World Federalist USA joined together to form the United World Federalist Organization. Now, this is here in the United States, folks. This is not in China, North Korea, Russia. This is the United States of America. Some of you that may have been around back during that time, you may have heard about these things, but you thought, I'm busy working a job, I'm going to school, and this, that, and the other. You didn't really know what they were trying to do, but there were people here in the United States working feverishly to establish a world governing body. Guess what? There are still people here today in 2019 that are trying to do the same thing. And these people fight every day against Donald Trump because they're trying to pull us into a world government. Donald Trump's trying to pull us out. Is Donald Trump a saint? I'm not saying he's a saint or a sinner. That's between him and God. All I'm saying is he's doing a lot of good things trying to pull us out of world government. Why would you want to impeach a president that's got, we've got jobs, he's creating jobs in the greatest economy and things are booming, but let's get him out of office as fast as we can. Why would you do that? Unless he's just an all-out murderer, or, something that's impeachable, but he hasn't done anything. Why? Because he's against your agenda, and you've got to get rid of him. Now, it goes on to say that supporters and members included very influential people from, as I read down through there were presidents, Hollywood, the media. A lot of people were involved in this. They got to get the population to buy into some of these things they're doing. So, hey, let's get the popular Hollywood people and let's get the media on board. And we've got presidents and congressmen and senators. President Dwight D. Eisenhower, he actually stated this, and I'm quoting, to the 11th Annual Assembly of the United World Federalists, the meeting in Boston, I send greetings. As the United Nations grows in strength and responsibility, the hope of a peaceful world is given substance. In this development, your organization merits high praise as it continues to inform and arouse our citizens to take their rightful share in building a full and lasting peace. That was Dwight D. Eisenhower. He was on board. And he said, congratulations to your dedicated membership and best wishes for a most successful meeting. Now, I say a lot of people were involved. Henry Fonda was a United World Federalist Advisory Board member. Gene Stapleton, you know Gene Stapleton from the All in the Family, Archie Bunker's wife. Gene Stapleton, she was a United World Federalist Advisory Board member. They had all kinds of people on board with this. And they were, what was the goal? Edith Bunker, that was her name. It escaped me there for a minute. Archie Bunker's wife, Edith Bunker, Gene Stapleton. She was an advisory board member on the United World Federalist. And he said, man, there's all kinds of people involved in this. Better believe it. And they believed in it. Now, what was the goal of the World Federalist Association? To establish a world governing body in the earth. Now, when you look, I was going down through this document, and you know that for years, Irvin Baxter has talked about, back in the late 60s, he started teaching that the Berlin Wall would come down, the two Germanys would reunite, and that would be a catalyst that would launch us into the New World Order. He knew that from Bible prophecy. That's really one of the things that started Endtime Ministries. He put it in his book, A Message for the President, and that was in 86 when the Berlin Wall came down in 89. Everybody started calling him going, how in the world did you know that? He said, it's in the prophecies of the Bible. Well, we talked that for years. Well, as I was going through this document yesterday on the Citizens for Global Solutions website, they talked about the Berlin Wall and the New World Order. And I'm like, we've been talking about this for years. They actually said, and I'm quoting, the fall of the Berlin Wall signified the beginning of the end of the Cold War. And as this era closed, the possibility for effective global security looked bright. However, many actions seemed to move the world both forward and backward at the same time. At the outbreak of the Gulf War in January 91, President George Bush broke the following words. Now, the Berlin Wall came down in 89. But you remember if you understand our teaching on the 7 trumpets, the 5th trumpet was the Gulf War with Saddam Hussein. Well, George Bush started talking about the New World Order. He said, this is a historic moment. We have in this past year made great progress in ending the long era of conflict and the Cold War. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. Now here we're talking about the United States of America, everybody. Good old Texan George H.W. Bush. We have an opportunity to forge a new world order, a world where the rule of law, a global enforceable law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we will have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders. So, in response to that, the World Federalist Association launched its New World Order Under Law campaign. So here we have the President of the United States all on board with this New World Order, the United Nations, a global enforceable law. It's the establishment of a world government, everybody. Go to the Citizens of Global Solutions, look on their website, and do your research. It's right there before you. This stuff's happening and has been happening for many years. I'll get into some more when we get back.
Does the book of Revelation frighten you? Do its symbols confuse you? For centuries, the book of Revelation has been misunderstood and misinterpreted. In Revelation, the unveiling of Jesus Christ, Volume 1, Irvin Baxter unlocks the mystery of the book of Revelation with in-depth analysis and commentary like you've never heard before. This 10-part definitive DVD series and 268-page comprehensive commentary book covers the first 12 chapters of the book of Revelation, featuring on-location photography, classic artwork, and symbolic illustrations. You'll walk away with complete understanding and peace about the events happening during the final years on Earth. These comprehensive study tools, available for $299, will deepen your biblical understanding as you dig into the original intent of the book, answering the mysterious prophecies and symbols of the book of Revelation. Don't miss this special offer. Call now, 1-800-END-TIME, or go to endtime.com to order. Call or go online now to get this comprehensive Bible study.
So I'm going to have to hurry because I got something you need to listen to. I'm going to play a clip here in just a minute. You've got to hear it. But before we get there, you remember that we've talked for years about Strobe Talbot. That this, if you go to this 50-year anniversary segment, this historical timeline on the Citizens for Global Solutions of the World Federalist Association, they said that writer and editor Strobe Talbot, who was later appointed by President Bill Clinton to the post of Deputy Secretary of State, he made an even broader and stronger argument for this world government in July 20 of 1992. The Time magazine article, The Birth of a Global Nation. We've talked about it so many times on the program. In the article, Strobe Talbott stated that within the next 100 years, nationhood as we know it will be obsolete. All states will recognize a single global authority, a world government. He said the best mechanism for democracy, whether at the level of multinational state or that of the planet as a whole, is not an all-powerful Leviathan or a centralized superstate, but a federation, a union of separate states that allocate certain powers to central government while retaining many others for themselves. Federalism has been proved the most successful of all political experiments, and organizations like the World Federalist Association, Strobe Talbott is advocating the World Federalist Association, he said, have for decades advocated it as the basis for global government. He's advocating full-on world government. Well, for his work in this essay, Strobe Talbott was selected as the 1993 recipient of the Norman Cousins Global Governance Award. Norman Cousins had been the president of the World Federalist Association over the years. Not the only one, but he had been one. Well, they give away a Global Governance Award, the Norman Cousins Global Governance Award. Strobe Talbott was a recipient of that. And the prize is awarded periodically for the published or the aired public communications which most increases public understanding of world law, global governance, and world federation, or world government. Strobe Talbott was a recipient of this award. Also, you remember actor Lloyd Bridges. Now, some of you guys, younger people, you probably won't remember Lloyd Bridges, but he was a Hollywood actor. He was a World Federalist Advisory Board member. He was also a recipient of this award. Then that brings me to Walter Cronkite. If you remember, we've talked about this many times. I'm going to play the clip here in just a moment. But on remarks by Walter Cronkite on accepting the 1999, Strobe Talbott received it in 93. Walter Cronkite received the Norman Cousins Global Governance Award in 99. And what I want you to do, let's moving on here a little bit, let's watch this and listen carefully to Walter Cronkite. For many years, he was known as America's newsman. You heard him, signing off, and he's going to be making a full-fledged plug for one world government and for suspension of the sovereignty of the United States of America. Do you hear that? These people are for full-on world governing body. The United States, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, all that stuff, out the window. We're for full-on world government. Listen all the way to the end as well, because you don't want to miss it. Now, I want my guys in the control room to help me and to play the Walter Cronkite video.
First, we Americans are going to have to yield up some of our sovereignty. That's going to be, to many, a bitter pill. It would take a lot of courage, a lot of faith, a lot of persuasion to them to come along with us on this necessity. Today, we must develop federal structures on a global level to deal with world problems. We need a system of enforceable world law, a democratic federal world government. Pat Robertson has written in a book a few years ago that we should have a world government, but only when the Messiah arrives. He wrote, literally, any attempt to achieve world order before that time must be the work of the devil. Well, join me. I'm glad to sit here at the right hand of Satan.
So did you hear what Walter Cronkite said? Join me. We need a true enforceable system of world law and world government. And at the end he said, join me. I'm happy to sit here at the right hand of Satan. Well, I'm telling you, Revelation chapter 13, verse 2 says, this world governing body in the Antichrist that the dragon or Satan gives him his seat, power, and great authority. These people gave their life. Now, honestly, I've got a lot more to go through today, but I wanted to give you this Walter Cronkite thing because Walter Cronkite received what he was talking about here. This was during his speech on receiving in '99 the Norman Cousins Award for global governance. Him pushing world governance. Now he says later on, I didn't do this while I was on the air as the news anchor, but he said, now that I'm retired, I can speak my mind. He was a member of the World Federalist Association. He pushed world government. And of course, there's another video where Hillary Clinton is congratulating him on his receiving the Norman Cousins Award. Why? Because she's a globalist. Bill Clinton's a globalist. They're all globalists. They're all working together for the same cause, to establish a world governing body in the earth. Now, one of the things I wanted to share with you, I've given the scenario many times on the radio that, and again, this is my opinion, okay? Capital O, opinion. But if you look at it, it really makes sense because the goal is a world government. What do they need? They need a crisis big enough to get the people of the world to buy into a world governing body, okay? So I've given this scenario many times. Well, as I was going through this 50-year history lesson of the World Federalist Association, now called Citizens for Global Solutions, I saw an old advertisement for, get this, world government on this, in this document. So listen at this. Well, okay, so let me give you the scenario real quick. So you have, they need a crisis, you understand. If they can get you in crisis mode, they can get you to do things you would never do in a time of peace. And so they need a big enough crisis. Well, we've got World War I. After World War I, what happens? They said, well, hey, to keep that from never happening again, we need a world government. It was called the League of Nations. Well, the League of Nations failed. So guess what? Now, this is my thinking. The first crisis wasn't big enough. The goal is world government. So you've got World War II. World War II, many times larger. I think there was like just over 8 million people killed World War I. Now you've got about 52 million, somewhere around there, in World War II. World War II, the concentration camps were liberated and the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs were bombed in 1945. That same year, the United Nations Charter is signed in San Francisco, 1945. I mean, because what? Because of World War, we can't have another one. So the only solution to that is world government. And so you know what's coming up in the near future, right? The Bible says that there's going to be a world government, a fully enforceable dictatorial world government led by the Antichrist. And so you say, well, what do they need? Well, they're going to need a bigger crisis. The Bible says there's going to be a World War III that kills 1/3 of the world's population. On the heels of that, we're going to move off into a fully functioning world governing body. Now, that's Scripture. But when I looked at, they're tying world government into the threat of world war. And in this advertisement, this is a United World Federalist advertisement during Vietnam. Now, you realize we'd come through World War I, we come through World War II in 1945, 38 to 45, and then, so this is 1966. The United World Federalist Association put this out, and it says it costs very little to provide life insurance for the world. So here we are, the United States is involved in Vietnam, and this says the air war. The U.S. pilots step up attacks in the north. This says, isn't that sweet? Thanks to the stupidity of some nations, we are now starting World War III. Now, this is 1966. We're now starting World War III. It's a scare tactic. Thanks to television's glorification of World War II, your sons, your boyfriends, your husbands may now aspire to wing his way into the big kill. It doesn't even take old-fashioned marksmanship anymore. The heat seeker missile will kill the other stranger about 100% of the time. Why? We don't know, but we'd like to stop it. You could help stop it. How? It means world government. Not the kind that destroys the individuality of nations, but the kind that keeps nations from destroying themselves. Would you like to help us and yourselves? It costs very little to provide life insurance for the world. Join the group by sending in this coupon, World Peace Through World Law. So they're saying, hey, on the heels of World War I, what was the solution to never having another world war? World government, the League of Nations. On the heels of World War II, what was their solution to never having another world war? World government. But of course that hasn't worked, has it? We've had wars, all kinds of wars since then. We haven't had another world war, but the fact of the matter is, the Bible prophesies, Revelation 9, verse 13 through 21, another war that's coming in the future that's going to kill 1/3 of the world's population. And on the heels of that, we will move into a fully functioning one world governing body, which the Antichrist will eventually usurp authority over 3.5 years prior to the second coming of Jesus Christ and the Battle of Armageddon. Now, wow, I said all that to say this, that we are in the throes of world government right now, everybody. The reason Donald Trump, if you think about it, why are they so intent on impeaching him? It's going to come out that he didn't do anything wrong. You watch. I mean, unless I'm just badly mistaken, which I highly doubt because I follow this stuff. The fact of the matter is they want to impeach him because they're trying to establish a world governing body and yield up the sovereignty of the United States of America, and he is not letting them do that. And so this is what we're fighting. It's the battle, again, with globalism and nationalism. Donald Trump has the America First doctrine, and that's what he's pushing. He's against socialism. He's against all this other stuff that the United Nations is for. And so I wanted to go through this today because many of the things that Irvin Baxter has been talking about for decades now, it was like encapsulated in this document that I found on Citizens for Global Solutions website, and I wanted to bring all of it out because this is not, it started, almost over 70 years ago now, and it's still very much in play. So we're not at the beginning of the establishment of the end-time world government prophesied about 2,000 years ago. We're at the culmination of this thing. We've only got a few years left. And many things are happening. I mean, really, this is the tip of the iceberg on this stuff, everybody. I wish I had 3 or 4 hours to go through all of it with you.
This has been End of the Age, brought to you by the faithful partners of Endtime Ministries. If you're not currently a partner with Endtime Ministries, or if you would like more information, we invite you to call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or visit us online at endtime.com.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page.